Final speaker today, Bill Klages, is the VP Influencer and Partnership Relations at QA Consultants. Bill, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Stephen. And once again, just share my gratitude for having the consulate and Maple sponsor this today, and grateful for my colleague presenters, Sam and Farron, and special guest Todd. We had some fantastic guidance so far. Hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy and safe. Hopefully we'll be out of this soon. So in this segment, I'm going to build on some of the prior messaging, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on the software side of security. I realize we have a diverse group attending here today. We've got some technology professionals, folks from the business side, but I hope this will be informative, if not a reinforcement. The objective is to really elevate your awareness of software exposure and risk that it places on your businesses. I'm going to review the top software quality trends, the security threat headwinds, and underscore the business risk from software intrusions that it's never been greater. And then finally, I'll touch down with some action steps you can consider to reduce your exposure and mitigate your risk. Throughout, I'd like to stress these key ideas. First, quality and security should be a habit. Secondly, all companies today can be considered software companies. And finally, security should be everyone's responsibility. So you see the quote on the screen from the philosopher Aristotle: quality is not an act, it's a habit. My instincts, though, urged me to wonder if quality was even a concept 2,400 years ago. So I did a little research online to understand what the context was. And as it turns out, there's no evidence that Aristotle actually wrote this. So, you really can't trust everything you read on the internet. So let's jump in. Next slide. So experts are estimating that software vulnerabilities are responsible for at least a third of all cyber breaches, and some estimate it could be as high as 60%. Many of these breaches occur because bug or security fix patches are not applied timely or even at all. And I'm surprised to learn that 90% of the data breaches in the US occur right here in California and in New York, so just 2 states. In our state, California, the reports are trending up. So far this year, the average number of reported breaches is about 20 per month. But let me underline that the entries to this database that you see, I've put a screenshot there on the slide. Each entry can oftentimes represent multiple breaches to the same company over a period of time. Anyone can access this breach registry at california.gov, and you can see the link below there. And note that it's not just the big commercial companies that we hear about in the press, but it's really all of our organizations, orgs, small businesses, and EDUs. So what does it mean when we say that every company should be considered a software company? It doesn't necessarily mean that your company builds or markets software. What it's suggesting is that in order to do business and serve your customer or client base, you pretty much have to have a website or a mobile app that runs on various browsers or operating systems, and certainly many different types of devices. You should assume that these applications are being probed round the clock by bots scanning for vulnerabilities, and you should treat your apps as if they're your precious assets. It's essential to carry cyber insurance, as Farron and Todd recommended, but that won't ensure your reputation. Apply quality and security to your applications as if your business will fail without it. So let's continue on. So what should be top of mind in 2020 as it pertains to software security? We scan the top trend forecasts from various software experts, testing tool providers, and research analysts, and we distilled them into these 5 top software quality trends. AI and automation and testing are being heavily promoted. However, a caution that although test automation is essential for building complex software and paving the path to faster software release, it's still maturing, and it's not yet the silver bullet to test for security vulnerabilities. AI testing is still in its infancy. IoT testing becomes very important, as IoT is a security nightmare, and much of the IoT traffic is unencrypted. With billions of endpoint devices being introduced as others are phased out, much of the software running these devices doesn't get patched for vulnerabilities. And let me see a raise of virtual hands if you guys are regularly checking and updating the firmware on your Alexa devices and smart home devices. I know I don't, but we should. Of course, cybersecurity and risk compliance is what we're focused here today, and that really speaks to elevating your software security testing and quality process. The threat headwinds are stronger and more ambitious than ever. First, the bad guys are more imaginative with finding creative ways to monetize a breach, especially on the dark web. Baby boomers will recall those cowboy western TV shows where the Wells Fargo stagecoaches are carrying the gold, and the bandits would hide in places where the stagecoach would slow down. And in a sense, that's what's going on with today's virtual bandits. They're using automated bots to constantly scan your software and entry points. Of course, we've moved to the era of virtual computing, and data is moving over the web. Insecure enterprise software applications are not necessarily any more secure just because you're moving them to the cloud. Software defects moved to the cloud are still software defects. Don't rely on infrastructure alone to keep your app secure. Consider a process to identify and fix defects and vulnerabilities earlier in your software lifecycle. And of course, as we mentioned and we're all experiencing, the most recent headwind is the vulnerability due to accessing our software from our home computers and devices while within these remote working conditions. So next, let's address business risk. As my co-presenters mentioned, the shift to a remote working atmosphere has magnified the potential risk in our systems. And it's really to an extent that we never anticipated. As I suggested earlier, you are a software company, and the likelihood of a breach is unfortunately very high. It's not a matter of if, but when it's going to happen to your organization. You should think about each of your applications as guarded assets, and that your efforts can mitigate the risk of intrusion to those assets. In this picture, I show risk halos, and these illustrate how risk is relative to the intensity of your software security program. And in a sense, it's an ROI model. Security debt is the most troubling part of technical debt, or bad software. So many engineering shops and IT development teams are primarily focused or invest in design and functionality. Engineers lack training in security. We really don't teach building secure code in our schools. And of course, racing the clock to release software can translate to competitive advantages and increased revenues. Effectively mitigating risk can be done through threat modeling early in your process. Introduce application security testing throughout the process, or what we refer to as the shift left approach to finding defects and fixing them as early as possible. Promote a culture where all stakeholders in the development program are responsible for security. As I said earlier, let's make security a habit. Now into the home stretch with some key takeaways. Security is not a feature. It's not static or done only after deploying code. It must be integrated into your end-to-end lifecycle. Security is not automatic. It needs to be acknowledged and designed into your process. Scale your application security to cover all your applications and not just your critical ones. Scanning tools alone will not identify and certainly will not resolve security defects. Make sure you're augmenting with smart manual and exploratory testing. Have an eye for building or integrating your applications with a zero trust mindset. Presume that the infrastructure or network security will not relieve your software from intrusion. Prepare threat modeling prior to commencing software builds. Adopt DevSecOps or AppSec to formalize the security track in your development. Invest in security training programs and refresh them regularly. And promote security champions in your development and QA teams. Reinforce that training and security culture with gaming programs like internal white hacking, and pay cash bonuses or bug bounties and make it fun. Leverage global resources like the Open Web Application Security Project, or OWASP, for tools and resources, including some of the best practices and community forums. And lastly, the security landscape is changing so rapidly that it can overcome your internal capabilities. Don't hesitate to leverage third-party experts to assess your security program or help you build an application security roadmap. And that's it. I hope this has been informative for you. And once again, make security a habit. Thank you for joining. It was a thrill to put this on for you. And now I'll turn it back over for Q&A.